and if there's anything you regret having said, we will remove it.
Unless it's good for drama.
Yeah, unless it's really juicy drama, then I might have
be
to
the title
keep
of the video.
Yeah, right. Then I might have to keep it, bro. Sorry, it's those are the rules.
He knows the rules, yeah.
Those are the rules. Yeah, I don't make him, All right, hello there, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Majmocha.
And I'm the Viper.
And this is episode 32 of the Town Center, your podcast dedicated to all things Age of Empires. In today's show, we already covered Warlords 4 in our latest post-match talk here on the channel, and I very much recommend everybody watch it. But there are some aspects of it that we didn't get to talk about, and I'd like to do that here today. Then the Cartographers 2 is now well underway, and we'll also discuss the Medieval Masters, which you'd be forgiven for not having heard about. Joining us today to help us make sense of all this and more is TaToH. He's a popular streamer, YouTuber, map scripter, tournament host, and more. TaToH, thank you so much for taking the time, and welcome to the Town Center.
Hello, thanks for having me on. I've seen all the clickbait titles. I wonder what's going to come out of this video now.
Hey, if you want to help us, just say something controversial, bro. Do you have anything controversial to say at the very beginning so that we can use it? No?
Yeah, we'll see what comes up. We got to put the controversy at the end so people watch the whole video.
Wow, thank you. That's the trick. Okay, good to know. I've heard you say, so I went back and I listened to the interview with you and Gianfranco. Do you guys remember Gianfranco?
That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Well, 3 years to be honest. 3 years to be precise. And you were telling me that one of your videos had like a 70, 80, what do you call it, audience retention? That's like crazy high. One of your pacifist videos had like 70, 80
that was
retention.
the pacifist videos. When those first came out, I just watched the stats, and it was basically a straight line at 80% audience retention for the first few days they were out.
I think you also had an interview with him, Orion, if I'm not mistaken, Gianfranco.
Yeah, I seem to recall. That's a long time ago, yeah.
I think it was around the time that you got your injury in your wrist, and I also remember that he made use the good clickbait. He had like a separate clip where it was like Viper talks about his tumor, something like that.
Oh, really?
Very, very bombastic.
His tumor. That sounds way more dramatic than it is.
Yeah, I like where his head is at. I like it. He knows how to play.
That's where you draw inspiration from that.
There you go. Okay, my friends, so I'd like to talk about Warlords 4. In the post-match talk video, one comment pointed out that we focused a little bit too much on the negatives of Warlords 4. And I think he does have a point, Viper, and I think it's also natural in the sense that when you're talking about a tournament that was good and successful, there's way too many positives to talk about, so you tend to focus on the negatives. I think that happens all the time, So I do want to balance things out a little bit here. I want to provide the positives of the tournament, and so I want to hear from you guys one thing you guys thought that Warlords 4 has done especially well. TaToH, you're our guest today, so we're going to go with you first.
Well, I like that I had a map competition. That's maybe the T-West angle of tournaments, but they're able to get 7 new maps made, and I know that's a lot of work for Trazini to do. And I think back when we had RMS Cup, we had like 100 submissions. I don't know how many they had, but I think it's a good part of getting more than just the competitive community involved in the tournament. And you can add map makers and mod creators and also get them interested in it. It's something I'd like to do more, but it obviously takes a lot of time. And I think the maps they came up with were pretty successful. Big fan of Basmo myself.
But were they balanced?
Those maps.
Were they ready? No, I'm joking. Yeah, I agree. It was a good thing.
No. Listen. I actually want to hear TaToH's take on that. So let me take just as an example I don't know if you watched it, the Morass game against the Viper. It was Viper and Mr. Yo. And I'm not taking this example to say Viper, it's the only reason Viper lost. That's why he was in the semifinals. I just think
is it though?
Working.
Maybe
it was. That's Viper saying, not me. Let me just make that clear. But I think it's the perfect example, TaToH, of a map that I don't think it was bugged. I don't think anyone considers it to be bugged, but it's very clearly in favor of someone. And then my question here is always going to be, if the admins give a restart for something like this, where's the line? The next guy who's got, I don't know, maybe 1 tree less than the opponent's going to complain about it. Hey, my map isn't fair. So I kind of see where the administration is coming from. So you as a tournament organizer yourself, what would you have done in a situation like that?
Yeah, well, for Cartographers, I'm both the organizer and admin and map scripter, so I have maybe some more authority about that. I hope that things aren't bugged. But it's always just kind of a feel call. So, sometimes there are things that are slightly unfair, and you play through it. It really depends on the exact situation. I can feel different admins might even have different opinions about the same map.
Would you, despite a map following the the rules laid out in the script itself, but still coming out unfair, would you consider a restart in that case?
Yeah, of course. I mean, every map is going to follow the rules in the script. It might do something unintended, but there are always cases where you might call a restart. I think when we did TTL, we had a map like Rocky Forest where sometimes like the connection was not from the player to the middle, but one player had like a connection to the side, and that's just something you can't really control in the map script. And the script is correct, but that's still an admin situation if it's very unfair.
Great start to the positivity about Warlords, by the way.
Very fair, very fair.
I tried to be positive. I said I liked the map competition. I liked the maps that came out of it. Viper's got to be all complaining about his shorefish having like one less shorefish.
I can support that though. Like the new maps in the tournament were very fun and very good. So
to be fair,
I support that one.
I'm hoping to bring different aspects here though. Orion, something else that you thought was good about Warlords 4, not the map scripting contest.
Well, I've always been a big fan of just the format of the tournament in general, like the categories. And I mean, I brought it myself into Cartographers 1, right? It says everything about how I feel about it. And I'm so happy that that's what he sticks with. And like, Member essentially has had like 2 big tournaments in his court, the King of the Desert and Warlords, right? Obviously Battle of Africa as well, but team games these days aren't that popular. I'm just so happy he's continuing with Warlords rather than trying to circle back to King of the Desert, because Warlords is just so much more fun. And particularly because of categories and the different maps. So that'll be my big one.
What I like about it is that we have a lot of maps. And it's something that I feel we've lost a little bit, in the modern era of Age of Empires 2 tournaments, that we tend to have shorter home map pools. And in this one, we have 21 maps. So again, it's indirectly connected to the map scripting context for sure. But I like that we have a very wide map pool. I think it helps, the underdog story. They prepare something crazy on a map that people have not played a lot. I think Hera very much spoke about this as well in his series against Varls, for example, that he felt one of the reasons Varls was able to do so well against him was that he was underprepared. He didn't have the time to, prepare all the maps and all of that. So I think it favors these kinds of things, which I think is great as well. So that would be, in my opinion, a big positive, big map pools. And I remember TOS, we used to have, crazy map pools back in the Vobley days.
Yeah, we did. Also very crazy maps too. We didn't have the tools for making maps as fixed as we do nowadays back then. So you would have these maps. I mean, we did, I think it was, a year or so ago, we did Clash of the Titans 2 and had a very Vobley-esque era map pool. Those were crazy. I had to go through and fix a bunch of them, and Wei fixed a bunch of them too, and they were still absurd compared to the maps we see today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I played the promotional for that one. It was horrible, honestly. It was so bad.
I remember there was like Atlantean relics where there was just like nothing but relics in the middle.
So is it something that DE brought along, more tools to try to make maps a little bit more fair? Or was it something that, map scripters just learned how to work around these things?
It's something that came first in the user patch, and then DE added a few more tools on top of that.
Man, it always goes back to user patch, doesn't it? It always goes back to user patch.
The user patch introduced what? Introduced the ability to add more civs to the game, introduced spectating for multiplayer games without taking up either you remember back in the day you used the same color as someone to watch the game.
You needed to go
couldn't watch it 4v4 live.
It introduced pathing.
Well, actually, you know what? TOS, let me hear your take on that. Are people just, seeing things with rose-tinted glasses, and it was just like, back in the old days, everything was better? Or is it really true that user patch
pathing was better, and there's no question about it. Pathing was better back then.
Didn't even let me finish the question. It was just obvious what the answer is. Okay. Yeah. What do you attribute that to? How does that even happen? How does it go worse? Is it because computers need to do more nowadays, with the HD graphics or 4K graphics in some cases? What explains
I don't think that should affect the pathing at all. It should be its own independent system in the gameplay engine. It's they've tried to fix it, and it feels like every patch they maybe fix something, but overall it gets worse. And you can see it, like when you go to hunt a boar, your villagers don't walk in straight lines. They tend to go and follow right angles. I don't know any one specific thing that's the cause of it. It just feels like over the years, it's never really been a focus of getting it correct. And I'm sure that there are many people who have worked on it, but the end result just hasn't been there.
try as we might, we always go back to pathing. We always go back to these kinds of things. It always comes along, which is understandable. It's a big thing for our part of the community, for sure. Okay, so folks, one thing I want to talk about Warlords 4 as well, as we like to do with every tournament, is viewership. Warlords 4 viewership peak was, if I saw it correctly, 37K, between 37K and 38K. And just to put things into perspective here, Warlords 3 was 45K. Though I think it's important to say that the final there was Viper against Hera. It was a somewhat close final as well, 5-3, which always helps. Then the Garrison, which was also played this year, 52K. Also, a little bit of a caveat here because the Garrison allowed everybody to stream. You know, they gave everybody, like, what do you call it, a feed, and everybody was just allowed to stream it for free. Nobody had to do anything, just put the fee on your OBS or whatever it is, and then it just works. TTL4 had 30K. I believe it was played in January. So just to try to put things here into perspective, it's clear this tournament in terms of peak viewership, and I understand this is not the only metric. You know, we have hours watched, and you guys will know everything about that. But for peak viewership, undoubtedly lower. And I just want to hear what you guys make of this. Is this reason for concern? Is this well within normal variation that happens with these kinds of things? You know, sometimes people just don't have more time. That's just the way it is. What do you make of it, Orion?
For me, it falls into the reasonable variation or variables that will happen in a tournament like Warlords. I mean, it's not that far off what it had in the last Warlords. So in the end, I wouldn't say like the numbers are bad. Obviously, they were higher before, but so was a Hidden Cup, right? Previous Hidden Cup. So, no, I think viewership was still fine. Obviously, would have helped the tournament finals dragged on a bit more because that's usually where the peak happens. So it's just one of those things.
No Viper in the finals, no long finals, and then you get something like this. T West, your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at the peak, that's pretty much it, right? Like Garrison was Hera, Leary goes 9 games, and Leary has a lead 7 games in. That's going to have a higher peak for sure. Mm-hmm. The finals determines your peak. It'd be interesting to see like maybe average viewership from quarterfinals onwards to compare and see how that does to other events. But the finals, you know, that's true for any sporting event, right? Not just Age of Empires. The finals will determine how good the peak is based on who's playing, how good of a set it is. There's nothing you can really do as a tournament organizer to control that. It's just going to happen the way it plays out.
Mm-hmm. I think I heard Mim say that the semifinals had more viewership than the Warlords 3 semifinals. I think part of it is because he had front page for the semifinals. He didn't have front page for the finals. I don't even know how any of that works. Why do you get front page for a semifinal but not for a final? I mean, if you're going to...
You apply for a slot and either you get it or not. Okay. Sometimes the slots is taken, right?
And they just decide for you, and you just take whatever is available. You don't have any...
I'm sure Mem applied for front page the whole 2 weeks of Warlords, and probably emphasis on the final weekend, and that's probably what he got.
Mm-hmm. Okay, go. Well, there you go. Just sometimes your possibilities are limited. Okay, so one thing that I'll note, even if Warlords 4 goes up to 45K, I will note that in the last couple of years, if you remove Red Bull tournaments and Hidden Cup 5, which are always sort of in a league of their own in terms of viewership, it seems like viewership is sort of stabilized around the 40K, 50K. I mean, if you look back to last year, Noble Apartments Cup had 40K. Nilly's, the last Nilly Apartment Cup had 50K. It's always between this, 40K, 50K, which, to be fair, especially for the folks who've been around for a long time, is an amazing number, but it seems like it is stagnated. Again, is this a reason for concern, or you guys think we've just reached the peak of people who are interested in professional Age of Empires 2, and that's fine, it's still a very high number, or do you see potential on the way up still? T West.
I mean, the game's been out for 6 years at this point, right? I feel like there is maybe a point where you're gonna stop adding people as rapidly as you have in the past. Whether there's still room for growth, I don't know. Maybe there is. Maybe something comes along and they have not a DLC that does very well and the pathing's fixed, and maybe they rework the lobby system so people don't have to deal with all the Alt F4s and dodges, and everyone starts playing the game more. But I don't know. Maybe that happens. Maybe it stagnates. The one thing that stands out to me is it doesn't really feel like any of the other games like Age of Mythology or AoE 4 had really affected AoE 2 long term in terms of the viewership. So I don't know if there's anything in terms of like releasing a new game in the series that would even affect that from here on out.
If they release new content and such and improve the game in various ways, I'm sure a lot more people would return more frequently, so to say, and that obviously increases your appetite for Age of Empires, and that also translates into consuming Age of Empires content. So I think it's both up to the developers to improve the game and also to all the streamers and tournament hosts and content creators in general to continue and do a job for not only themselves but also for the game to increase viewership and attention around tournaments and such. And I mean, numbers are still good, I think, overall. I don't think there's a reason for concern, to address your previous question. And yeah, again, it's just one of those things where viewership will fluctuate depending on timing, stage of the year. Like Warlords as well now happened like kind of entry to the summer. A lot of people are spending more time outside in the sun. So timing might not be ideal. If this happened like during a holiday, different time of the year, suddenly viewership might be like 10K plus, right? Who knows?
To be fair, Warlords 3 happened at roughly the same time. But again, I totally see what you guys are saying. I think, in my opinion, things have stagnated quite clearly, but I don't think that's bad. We've stagnated at a very high level, and I think the only thing that will take it, a step higher would be if we have like a new release, an incredible release that brings a lot of new people to the game. I don't think that's likely. We are already ahead of Age of Empires 4. I don't see Age of Empires 5 coming in the near future, but I feel like it would take something like that to increase these numbers massively, right?
Or something like just, we've seen these Red Bull tournaments from a big outside sponsor. If there's some other sponsor becomes interested in the game, decides to host their own Red Bull Wololo equivalent size tournaments, that might drive up, at least for that event, drive up tournament numbers and maybe have an effect on the overall competitive watching viewer number scene. Whether that affects like gameplay numbers or numbers of people playing the game, I don't know. But I could see something like that happening. And then that might just come down to maybe a streamer forms a relationship with some other company, is able to bring in a sponsorship.
There's still so many people that don't know that Age of Empires is still a thing, right? You see that almost every day still. So yeah, even just like we had a phase a couple of years back where like Lyric was streaming Age of Empires, for example. Those things brings a lot of attention as well. Maybe, who knows? I know Asmongold has been talking a lot about how he played Age of Empires in the past, so maybe he picks it up one day and suddenly there's 50,000 plus people watching Asmongold play Age of Empires, Those types of things definitely help a lot. It's a bit about like the timing, right? Be at the right place at the right time and this and that, right? So a lot of small factors and big factors that can impact it in many ways. And yeah, as Travis also said, or like, say Monster Energy comes in and hosts a Red Bull competition, then there's like another angle for a lot of attention. Yeah.
Then you have competition between sponsors. That would be cool too. Okay, so let's move on to the Cartographers 2. This is a 2v2 tournament, 9 villagers start with a $15,000 prize pool sponsored by Microsoft. We are right now in the round of 16, and the final is scheduled for June 22nd. The whole thing is hosted and organized by our very own T West, but that's not how it was initially supposed to be. We've talked a little bit about this before, Orion, that you were supposed to be the one hosting the tournament. But I do wonder, because I'm sure you knew about this rule, right? That you're not supposed to host a tournament that's sponsored by Microsoft if you're playing in it. So what happened there?
I mean, there was a lot of leeway in the past regarding this, right? We've had multiple times where players have hosted and played as well. But ever since Nilly came in, it's impossible. I mean, I just feel like they're a little bit more enforcing in that regard. And yeah, it was just made clear to me that if I want to host Cartographers again, I cannot participate this time because of this rule. So then it was for me, like, I think Cartographers, the first one was a great success. And I wanted the tournament to continue. So essentially how it went about is I went to Nilly and asked, okay, is there a chance if I pass along the tournament to someone else, they will keep the same name, everything the same, and in that case, would we still get the same prize pool and such? And Nilly was obviously quite positive in that regard. And then I also suggested then like T West, who I worked with at Cartographers 1, to be the one taking over as well, because T West has also done a lot for Age of Empires in the recent years and has also kind of had a bit of an upwards trajectory when it comes to casting and taking part in bigger events and such. So yeah, it was a positive response from Nilly, and Nilly was also kind enough to give the same prize pool. So yeah, that's pretty much how it went. And then I obviously asked T West, and T West was not hard to convince. So that's how it happened.
That's
now
pretty
it's
much how it
under under the wings of TaToH.
So were you going to host or were you going to organize the tournament anyway? Because I don't see Oregon doing all the work. TaToH, were you going to do it anyway if it was hosted in Oregon's channel, or was it somebody else supposed to do it?
I imagine it'd probably be similar to last time if you were to do it, right? I'd admin it, and work on the maps, and probably stream a lot of it myself.
Mm-hmm.
I do a lot of map scripting for a variety of tournaments anyway.
So as far as your work is concerned, not much has changed for you, only that you're going to be hosting it in your channel, basically.
Well, it's a lot more work because all the like social promotion and of running the event, making sure that I'm obviously the one streaming it. I need to make sure that I'm actually here every day streaming it. It's not like I can just go on and off like I would do with other tournaments and stream whenever I'm around. I need to make sure I can have time to do this and commit to it. But I think it's gone pretty well so far. I'm happy with the way we've had. We're running a community tournament at the same time, and we've had, I think, 130 total teams who have signed up for this. So I don't know in terms of viewership how well we've done with outreach to the general viewership community because of having like no break from like Warlords right into this. Warlords was done one day, and the next day we start streaming this. But at least as far as the core AoE2 community who, not beyond just watching tournaments, is interested in playing in them, I think we've done a great job of reaching that.
My whole goal with Cartographers initially was that it was going to be like a great event for players, like short, quick, efficient, and flexible scheduling for players and this and that. And I also asked TaToH to carry it on in the spirit it was intended, and he has done so for sure. And like I said, like the previous event as well, like the workload for TaToH is obviously more now. And for me, last Cartographers, the only thing I did was I was part of the setting up the tournament. But once the tournament began, I was like, I'm done. And then it was all on TaToH, on Lord Patito. So yeah, I imagine the workload, like Travis mentioned here, is pretty much, well, a lot more because he's also got to do all the preparation.
Last time all we had to do was look at Viper's maps and tell him he doesn't get a restart.
Wow,
pretty much.
Easy. That sounds easy enough. Is there anything, well, is this the first tournament that you're organizing or a large-scale tournament that you're organizing where you were the sole responsible for the whole thing? Okay, yeah. Yeah,
I mean, I've been involved with tournaments for a long time with organizing them. I think this is the first one you could say I'm the host for. I mean, I've been involved with larger events too, right? Like I've done the maps for Hidden Cup, or I've admined for even the ECL back in the day. That was a long time ago now.
ECL, oh yes,
ECL. I've been around the block as far as tournaments goes, but yeah, this is for at least for personally on my channel, this is the largest scale event that I've hosted.
Mm-hmm. So is there any expectation, because again, if Neely is going to award certain funds to Viper, he expects Viper to hit certain metrics. So do those metrics carry on to you? Do you know what the metrics are that you're supposed to hit in order, to justify the?
We don't really have any goals, or at least not that I've discussed with Neely. I mean, personally, I'd like to at least be at the same level of viewership as last time, and we have those stats. Off the top of my head, it was like 26K viewers we had peaked at. I don't know how that compares to other A-tier tournaments, but I'd like to at least get to around that number for the final weekend. But a lot of that depends on who streams the finals. Is it if T90 streams the finals versus if he doesn't? That's going to be a huge difference in viewership. Right. So it's not just my own viewership that counts, but the community as a whole that I'm more interested in. So we'll see how that plays out. I don't know. I don't specifically have any goals for myself, other than I want to make sure it's a fun tournament for the players, and if people are interested in it and they want to stream it, I hope that they see that it's a fun event and they enjoy the 2v2 aspect and are interested in streaming it.
Mm-hmm. Keep in mind as well, the last Cartographers final suffered from the same fate as other tournaments have, where the final was a total clapping.
Exactly.
So let's hope that this final,
as Viper says, having won that finals, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just pointing out facts here, like.
But yeah, that's true. Like I feel like the semifinals between you guys and TaToH and DauT were probably the peak of the like quality of sets, accumulating in TaToH deleting his Arbalests.
Oh, I remember that.
Yes.
Yeah. Gold Rush was it, I think, or Golden Pit.
It was Golden Pit, and it was a close game, and then TaToH deleted all of the Arbalests.
30-40 Arbalests. They still won the game.
Their run in the tournament came to an end right there.
It was close, but the game was over at that point before he deleted. So come on.
Yeah, sure.
Not yet, sure. It was.
So going back to the final, because I could see from your face that you were being sarcastic. The finals were pretty close, weren't they? I remember they were an incredible final. I think you guys went to the very last game. Didn't you guys go to the very last game?
Oh, you are talking about us against
the pizza, the Pizza or whatever. I remember that map. Wasn't that the very last map? The Pizza.
Oh, the Four Seasons.
No.
That was the last map, but I think it was 5-1 finals.
Was it that easy?
5-1.
All right.
Yeah, well, that's why I said it was a clapping. Yeah, 5-1.
5-1. Wow. Okay. So I had
we were up 4-0 at one point.
Wow. Just remember, viewers, that was Viper and Jordan, and they're going to be reteaming for this tournament. And it's actually
Jordan's back.
Yeah,
he ruined everything.
He's played already. Viper hasn't played. Viper's been vacationing. He hasn't been paying attention.
Yeah, but he ruined everything. That was Jordan's last tournament, and me and him went out in like full blaze of glory kind of thing.
So you're saying that you're gonna play with him again, and then this is gonna be his last one? Are you saying he's back only for this?
No, I'm afraid he's back for good at the moment. But yeah,
really? Okay.
That's your title. Viper says Jordan's back for good.
No, that's not. We cannot have that be a title here.
Not clickbaity enough. Not dramatic enough.
The amount of times we've seen Jordan's back as titles is already like has lost its meaning at this point.
Fair.
We lost in the sea of other videos.
Yeah, but yeah, Cartographers was very special for me because it was Jordan's final tournament, and me and Jordan got to play a 2v2 together again. And yeah, he's back, so we got to play again, which is a bit weird. But we also have TaToH on our team this time, so we are obviously aiming for a pretty high position, but we got a pretty low seed. So like reigning champions apparently don't get seed 1 for some reason.
Yeah,
it's a different team. You have TaToH on your team now. He was on another team.
Yeah, so let me just explain this a little bit. So Hera and DauT, that was going to be a question for you too. So Hera and DauT are seed 8, and Viper and TaToH and Jordan are seed 10. So how does that come about? What type of
it's a combination of, we use the formula with a combination of 1v1 elo, team game elo, and tournament elo. Because last time there are definitely team game players out there who don't play 1v1s that much and aren't really reflected in any of the tournament standings that well, as there's no equivalent of tournament elo for team games out there. So the attempt was to do a few things at once, of both trying to get an accurate seeding while also promoting people playing on the team game ladder. And I think we did a decent job of that. We had considered trying to reseed things once, like by tournament elo at different parts of the bracket, but decided just to run through with the initial seeding. So Viper, if he doesn't play the team game ladder, he did have to play a qualifier. With that.
I think a way to address this, like the way it's obviously probably me and TaToH and Jordan deserve a little bit higher seeding on paper, right? It's like, I think if you can do that seeding and get like the top 8, maybe top 16 teams based on their elo, and then you can ask each team to seed each other within that group, right? To get, in my opinion, then would be a more fair seeding for the top 16 at least. But obviously after that, it will be way too much. Maybe even 16 is too much.
Yeah, the hard thing for us is that we're trying to do a lot of things that are condensed into 3 weeks. And when we also don't want to put all the prize money onto the top teams who wins it, and we want to spread that out between both the Gold League and the Silver League. And when we needed to award like prize money for the top teams who made it through the qualifiers, we found that it would be kind of awkward to do that and then have a reseeding process. Right. Whereas some teams would be in the top 8 and they'd work on the team game ladder to get this first round bye and then be reseeded and then have potential differences in, well, we still award them the same prize money, but we found that it started getting awkward if we had a reseeding process after that. So it's something we could consider, but we'd really like to have maybe more than just 3 weeks to do qualification plus single elimination bracket. And I think if we could do that, then the seeding would work itself out a lot better.
One thing that's confused me a little bit here, Orion, is that GL is not bringing their best team. I don't think this is a controversial take. We have Hera.
What do you mean?
You don't think Hera and DauT's the best team?
Hera and DauT are like clearly the best.
Okay, I knew I was going to hear this. Of course, now I'm going to look bad, but I think people know where I'm coming from. So isn't that like something that was imposed? Well, apparently, obviously, it wasn't imposed on you guys. So what were the discussions there between you guys? Why did you decide to, again, the best team would arguably be Hera and Viper, Hera and TaToH, potentially the 3 of them. Or maybe just one team with all the GL. Why not? Just one GL team, which then again would maybe forfeit the chances of having 2 prizes though. So, but yeah, what were the discussions there like?
Well, first of all, when we have 4 players in our team of such high caliber, I think it makes complete sense to send 2 teams to make sure we increase not only the competition for ourselves, but for everyone else as well. Otherwise, even before Jordan was playing with the idea of coming back, I was kind of teasing Jordan about him coming back for Cartographers too. So like I always had this dream of that if it was to happen again, I would like even talk to about playing it with Jordan before he, like, even if he was retired, that he would come back just for the tournament, right? Obviously he's not GL currently. I did talk to the staff and asked like, hey, would this potentially be okay that I team with Jordan? And they were like open to the idea. And then essentially, like, obviously there was also the thought in our head that maybe we send me and Hera, for example, and then TaToH and DauT teams again. But yeah, in the end, Hera was open to teaming with DauT. DauT was open to team with Hera, and Jordan is also obviously very close with myself and TaToH. So I was like, okay, maybe we just do this. Hera made a joke in our Discord about taking DauT, and we jumped on that opportunity. So
it was like he wants to take the challenge upon himself to.
This is a win-win for Hera, right? If he wins, it's like, wow, he won with DauT. That's insane.
If he loses, yeah.
And if he loses, well, he was teaming DauT. So that's pretty much how it went about. Yeah, then I was just like, I asked TaToH, yo, you want to team with me and Jordan then? And yeah, it was fine by the GL staff as well. So that's pretty much how it came about.
It's not the only team where something like that is happening, TOS. So, for example, Hart and Leary are teaming up, and Leary is part of Onamaru. He's not teaming any of the Onamaru guys. In that case, weird as it sounds, it actually makes the team stronger. I mean, it's not weird. I think it's a fact. It just makes the team stronger. So, what do you make of the competition as it is? Do we think we have a clear front runner?
I mean, that's a good question, because last time the top 4 teams have all kind of changed their rosters slightly, because last time Hera didn't play, but he was also on the team with Hart and Leary, who finished second. And then it was DauT and TaToH who had finished they were fourth then, and then it was Yo and Vivi, and Yo swapped out Vivi for Lix now.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know how swapping the rosters changes them around, and then we have a lot of new up and coming teams that I think have gotten a lot better in the past, like Nikov Sebastian should be a pretty good team. We have ACCM and Slam, who were top 8 last time, that can always do something interesting. And then we think we also have Andy and Lewis, who I know were grinding team games, and with how varied the map pool is, I think that goes back to the preparation issues. If they've played a lot of games, then they'll have a good edge. I know Andy was messaging me questions about the map pool a month ago, saying things he didn't like about the maps, or things that he thought were bug reports or needed to be changed. So I know there's a lot of teams that have prepared for this
for a long time.
I think the only team we're missing out on is a Finland team. I think Valessa, it was their midsummer holiday and they weren't able to be free for the finals. But other than that, I think pretty much all the top players have signed up for teams.
Yeah, I wanted to. You mentioned the third place match that they got fourth, the TaToH and DauT. We forget third place match was played with DauT and Nilly.
That's
true. DauT and Nilly. I remember that. True.
But yeah, Nilly cannot participate anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, deep cuts. So. Yeah. Deep cut right now.
But awesome. Yeah, I mean, just listen to how many teams TOS just mentioned. Like, the quality is insane in this.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, that's kind of why we didn't want to do anything weird with the seeding once we got like the top 16 teams, is because the teams have changed so much. We just wanted to kind of go with it and see who comes out of the field.
One thing which is a bit, it's a bit common knowledge in Age of Empires too, or at least a lot of people say it, is that team games are just harder to follow for the spectator, for the people watching, and that's why viewership tends to be lower than 1v1 tournaments. First of all, would you agree with that? It's just harder to follow, and that's why viewership is usually not as high as 1v1 tournament, despite having all the good players.
Well, I think the game itself can be harder to follow, but I think that's more of an issue in 4v4s than 2v2s. Yeah, there's a lot more going on than a 1v1, but I think a 2v2 is definitely something that's controllable to watch and see pretty much as much as you do in a 1v1. I think it's more that we don't have a consistent team structure in AoE 2, and people tend to change teams all the time. Where for a 1v1, it's easy to follow a specific player, but for team games, it's outside of like a Nations Cup where we have a country team, and people are swapping around all the time. Like we have Sebastian was on Fox with Mihai, and now Mihai, TaToH, and MBL are playing with Z40 on the Taiwan team. And I think it's harder outside of GL and maybe the Chinese teams to build a consistent brand over the course of many years where people want to follow you. I think we probably have the Chinese teams, the Finland team, and then GL, and a lot of other teams have changed around. So I think just not following like the game itself, but actually following the team game scene is harder because it doesn't really exist and it needs some momentum to get started.
It changed. That's a very fair point that I'd never thought about. Now, I have this crazy take, and I'm sure a lot of people disagree with it, but I'm still going to give it to you and I want to hear your honest opinion, T West. I think one of the bigger problems with team games is that and why it's so hard to follow, even though I agree 2v2s are a lot easier. It's just because if you look at the mini map, I just think of myself when I'm watching a game that I'm not very familiar with. The first thing that I do is I look at the mini map. I see the colors. Okay, that's the red team. Okay, that's the blue team. On a 4v4, you look at Vampires 2, you see 8 colors completely scattered around the map. What the fuck am I looking at? So I think one easy thing that I think would help a lot would making people in the same team having the same color, or at least the same shade. And I think in a 2v2, it's even easier. You can have, dark blue and bright blue against dark red and bright red on the mini map. Is this stupid? T West.
I'll give you two different takes on this.
Okay.
First is that whenever I cast a game and I'm not using the same ladder colors of odds versus evens, I get so many comments in my chat saying, "Oh, I don't know who the teams are. We need to change the colors around." So whenever I cast a Rage Forest lobby game, I need to spend a couple of minutes figuring out who's on which team and changing the colors just so it matches up. My other take is that this is from playing campaigns. Is that part of the fun of Age of Empires 2 is that players have different colors. And that if you go forward into Age of Mythology and AoE 3, the campaigns were pretty much always blue versus red. And yeah, even though I really enjoy the Age of Mythology campaign, it gets kind of boring after a while. It's just kind of the same color matchup. And I think changing the colors gives a bit of appeal, whether it's to civilizations or to players. Like, what are we going to do if Viper is not playing yellow in a tournament? I cast Viper versus Mihai, and Mihai takes yellow, and my chat yells at me that I need to change the colors because the colors are wrong. So I think that maybe it could make it easier to follow, but you also have to weigh that against the personality that all of the color adds to the game.
But again, if you have different shades and you can still recognize who's who, doesn't that give enough personality so you can still distinguish between players, but it's still pretty clear who's playing on each team?
It might. I wonder if that would be... Are you suggesting that it's also reflected in the units themselves or just on the minimap?
Good question. I guess both. I guess it'd have to be both.
I feel like if you have that disconnect between the units and the minimap, it would be
No, it has to be both. Yeah, it has to be both,
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that I think maybe it's worth trying, but you need to be careful with it to make sure that it's still distinct enough to tell players apart. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. It's something we can consider now, because back when Age 2 had 256 colors, we wouldn't have enough colors actually to do different shades like that.
Funny thought, yeah. Okay, folks, awesome. I'd like to move on to the Medieval Masters. And again, we've talked about this in the intro. You'd be completely forgiven for not having heard of the Medieval Masters. That's another Microsoft-sponsored 1v1 event, $10,000, and this one is hosted by Mario Ovalle. You pretend to know how to pronounce it, or if I'm not mistaken, is it Ovalle? Mario Ovalle, who's a very big Colombian streamer, YouTuber. I think he's got like 270,000 subscribers, pretty big channel. So the qualifiers have already started, but it will be pretty tough for you to follow them because Mario has decided not to cover any of the qualifiers except for a few select deciders. So I think he's going to pick like 6 deciders. There's going to be 12 if I'm not mistaken. And he's going to stream recorded games of those. Main event will begin right after the Cartographers 2, which is to say June 23rd. Orion, I believe you were originally invited for the tournament, but you can't make it, so you're not going to be part of it. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Okay, I think DauT too is not going to be part of it, which means the invites are Hera, TaToH, Leary, and Yo. Definitely, there's been very little promotion for this tournament, and I've had some people, some people messaged me that they thought this was unfair because they had their tournaments rejected by Microsoft, and now look at this guy, he's not doing any sort of promotion, and he got the money, and they feel like this is a little bit unfair. So what do you guys make of this situation? Should tournament hosts who are awarded money from Microsoft be required to do the utmost in terms of promotion? Because I think another very fair point here is that Mario, even if he doesn't make any promotion whatsoever about the tournament, is probably still going to have very big numbers just because he's such a big YouTuber. So there's a lot of different aspects here to consider, in my opinion. What do you make of it all, T West?
Well, that's a good point, and I think there's also a Microsoft side to that. Like, if they're sponsoring a tournament, you then start to ask, what does Microsoft do to promote the tournament themselves? Because if they're spending $10,000 on this tournament budget and you're following the Microsoft social media and you haven't seen any posts about it, well, that's not just on Mario. There's several different components involved there. So I don't, it's hard for me because as an English speaker, I don't follow Mario's community all that well to evaluate what he's done. But I think that there are certainly maybe expectations that you have as a content creator to be promoting the event if they're giving you money. But from what I've seen, there's everyone kind of who has done tournaments usually has their own channels and their own systems and different ways of doing things. And there's no back in the day we had AoE Zone where your tournaments were there and that's where they were. Nowadays they're all spread out in different Discord servers and different communities and different tournament hosts. So I think it's a challenge actually to properly promote events these days.
Very fair point. And I think very true, because I don't think any of us in the international community, because Mario, he streams in Spanish only, folks in the international community probably don't follow his stream very closely just because he streams in Spanish. So he might have done a lot for his community, which is probably what matters the most in terms of viewership, but not as much in the international community. I don't know. When was the first time you heard about it, Orion?
I knew about it a couple of months. I knew about it a couple of months ago, that it was going to happen, right? But I only got an invite, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, where I was got an official invite to a tournament. So yeah, but that's obviously because sometimes you have some insights into what's up and coming, right? But yeah, I also have not seen any advertisement on it, but the factors are there. Right? In general, advertising should be a team effort, not only from the host and Microsoft. I think everyone that want to take part in the event wants it to be successful. So if I'm streaming or T9 is streaming, Hera, TOS, whatever, to just, if we know that it's coming, to mention it, hey, by the way, Medieval Master is coming, you should check it out, right? That's something that doesn't cost much for people to do. So it should be a team effort in some way, but obviously the core effort has to come from the host, right? Mario should have reached out then to people if he wanted to advertise more, hey, can you mention that this is coming on the stream? Can I share this on your Discord and this so forth? But yeah, I don't know, whatever Microsoft is happy with, right? They gave him $10,000 for his tournament. And so far, I don't know how the numbers are or whatnot, but yeah, it obviously is something that has gone a bit under the radar for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, the signups were, I think they had 38 signups for the tournament originally, then they extended the deadline a little bit more. Again, I have no experience with this, but 38 sounds pretty low for a tournament. Yeah,
it is fairly low, but also the tournament isn't that big, right? I think there's 16 players in the main event, or
16 players.
And it's also focused at very high level players too.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not, as far as I know, there's no community event.
I think the reason it was extended was because some noticeable people were complaining, oh, I never heard about this tournament. I didn't reach the signups.
Right.
So yeah, that also kind of tells the tale a little bit.
Yeah, I'm coming for this more from the point of the medium tournament or the medium content creator, medium-sized content creator who wanted to have a tournament of their own, and they've been rejected by Microsoft. And then they look at this, I would have done a lot more promotion, But again, my opinion here would be that, again, Mario is such a big content creator that even if he does not do too much promotion, he's probably still going to have a very high viewership. I've noticed his videos get regularly 20K, 30K viewers. So it's still, probably more than a medium-sized content creator can provide, assuming that nobody else is streaming, right? So basically, that's probably what matters for Microsoft at the end of the day. How many eyeballs you have in the tournaments. You guys have more experience than this than I do. But I guess that's the thought process here, right?
Yeah. And I know he also is going to run into the same problem that I did, that we had Warlords and then Cartographers is the day after, and there's no break in between, is we're going to have Cartographers, and the qualifiers are going on right now during another event, and then as soon as this event ends, he's going to have his event, and there's no break in between where people can kind of have a build-up to become prepared or even become aware of the next event.
Very fair. Okay, so I want to make a very quick shout out here to the Town Center Tango, which is a B-tier tournament organized by Jam and AOE. That's a 3v3 tournament. The semifinals. We're right now in the semifinals, and it's going to be GL against Onimaru. That sounds like a very juicy matchup. On the other semifinals, we got Wonders and Barbataco. So Wonders would be like Sebastian's team, and Barbataco's that's Dogon and Miguel. Do you have a date already, Orion, for the semifinals? I'm looking for that one very, very much. GL and Onimaru.
I'm pretty sure we're gonna play on Thursday. It was like proposed today. I'm not sure if it's confirmed yet, but I think Thursday is where it's gonna take place.
Okay, so Thursday. That means by the
evening.
time this is out, it's gonna be tomorrow. So to everybody listening to these on the day of
it gets confirmed.
if it's preferred.
Yeah.
You never know. Followed it a little bit, TOS. What do you feel? What do you think about the tournament?
I haven't really had as much time to follow it, other than I always hear whenever I'm organizing cartographers, people talk about how they feel like they're really excited to be able to play GL and do really well against them. I know that the Nocturna teams were talking about that.
Very close games, yes. Very close games.
That's it. I get the sense that the people who have been playing in it were really excited to be playing in it.
Right. It's a totally different game, Orion, when you have a sudden death.
Right.
So again, the shtick, the feature of this tournament is that it's sudden death, which means as soon as you lose your first TC, and you can't build more than one, as soon as you lose your TC, the game is done for that guy. He's defeated. Is it just a totally different game when the settings are like this?
Yeah, it's obviously different. Also, Civ strength varies as well because of that. But no, it is very fun. Obviously, I think majority of us are playing mostly because it's a fun event, so we can stream it and have a good time together. We have had some really fun games as well, so it's been a great success on that front. And yeah, again, semifinals most likely on Thursday, hopefully. Looking forward to that.
Me
Should
too.
be a lot of fun.
Me too. It's going to be awesome. All right, TOS, you already given us a lot of time, and I thank you very much. But still, we don't want to pass on the opportunity now that we have you here to just know a little bit more about you. So one thing I'd be very curious to know, of course, is are you full-time in Age of Empires 2? Is this everything that you do professionally? You have something on the side too?
No, this isn't everything I do. I still do a lot of programming, but I do that on a part-time basis now. So I used to work on healthcare software. So if you go to a hospital in the U.S., there's a good chance that your doctors are using software that I used to work on. But I've just kind of had a situation in my personal life where I needed some time off to do something a bit more chill, and so streaming was a nice way to do that, along with still having time for other things.
Mm-hmm. So that means your background is in programming, so you do. Well, I mean, it's pretty obvious.
Yep, I have a degree in math and computer science.
Mm-hmm. Something that I've noticed with you, and we had a perfect example of that in this podcast, and I see it all the time in posts that you make publicly, is that you're very critical of the dev team, of the DE's dev team. I've seen a lot of Reddit posts that, when people complain about the lack of features, you always go back to Voobly. You've said it about the user patch as well, pathing and all of that. So what's your general assessment of where we are now with the game, with Age of Empires 2, and what are your biggest criticisms of the dev team right now?
Well, I worked a lot. As I said back in the day, I worked on admin, the ECL, and various other tournaments with people, with Scripter and the user patch team, and there were a lot of things that they did, and they did very quickly and very correctly, and we didn't have the same types of issues that we do in DE, not just the long pathfinding, but it'd be like anytime I had like a random bug, like there is the map scripts don't parse comments if they're inside of if statements, and that's affecting my ability to make the map packs for ECL. I send a message to Scripter, and in the next hour or two, it's fixed. And there are trade-offs when you go to now having a larger publisher working on a product that you're not going to get the same turnaround time or the same individual attention to issues. And when you're advertising this as a Microsoft developed product or a Microsoft published products, I think that from their point of view, they want that to be a positive thing and not necessarily to advertise that as something where there are trade-offs, where there are good things and bad things that go along with that. And for me, as someone who has put a lot of time and effort into making things work, it is extra frustrating to then open up the game and, maybe Scripter fixed this thing years ago and it's still broken in DE, to have to encounter that. And then, even things like the like save and restores when sometimes you can't restore the game in DE. We've had those pop up several times over the years still, and that was a system that worked flawlessly back in the day and now is broken and affects tournaments. I remember, I think there was this, it was one of my most viewed streams back a couple years ago when I was doing Nations Cup. I think it was Taiwan and Brazil, and they had a game that dropped and then couldn't be restored, and then the chat just goes crazy at that time. And it's extra frustrating for me knowing that I've gone through this system where I've seen things that are done correctly, and now there are steps backwards in the quality from that.
I just want to point out, Scripter, for those who aren't aware, created a patch, used a patch in the past on Voodoo Days, where it took the game to another level, essentially. And yeah, for those who aren't aware, when we say Scripter, it was an actual individual.
One of the biggest legends of Age of Empires 2, if I'm honest. I've tried many times to get his contact, but he's like the most, even more mysterious than the Tyrant.
Back in the day, you had to go to the IRC chat,
but he's not there anymore, right? He's not there.
He's not there anymore.
I heard rumors, first of all, that it was a woman. Secondly, that it was like a US agent, and therefore this person couldn't.
Lots of mysterious rumors about them.
Well, how much credence do you lend to those rumors?
No idea. I just remember having conversations. They were, as far as I knew, somewhere in the western part of the US and had summers without air conditioning.
Okay.
Really hot out there.
I think we do know he's an American. I don't know why we know that. I mean, I think it's very obvious he has to be someone who worked on the game at some point in some official capacity. I think it has to be the case, just because of the immense amount of law. You guys remember, whenever something weird happened, you would ask on AoE Zone, and he would answer with like the most detailed explanation in technical terms that we'd ever seen before.
Could have just been an extremely gifted coder, right? You don't know.
That's a given too, for sure.
Extremely gifted at reverse engineering and applying EXE fixes to the game.
In any case, Scripter, it's someone who I've always wanted to have here. Orin, I don't know if you somehow can make your connections work, bro, or anyone. Maybe
I don't think so.
I don't
think you're getting a Scripter interview ever.
It's a good try, Nelson, but no, it's
maybe Scripter. Maybe you're listening to this, bro. If you are, you know where to hit us.
There is a lot more history here that has things that have happened behind the scenes that also has impacted the disappearance of Scripter, but that's for another day.
Your face makes it look like you know more than you're letting in or letting out.
I might know a few more things, but they're not for me to share.
No, for sure. Maybe you want to share once we start recording. I'll try.
But on this whole coding and such, Travis, is this where your interest into like the map making and such came as well? And when did you start with all the map making stuff?
The map making is just something that I did back when I was doing tournaments with Zach. We needed someone to do the maps, so I did them. That's pretty much how it started. As things went on, as I said, the user patch and then DE added more features to the map scripts, and map scripting today is pretty much nothing like it was back in 2017, 2018 when I started. There are a lot more hacky things that we can do in DE. Things that I don't think we ever really were intended to do, but I guess that's just kind of how it works. You take things that they add and you find ways to work with them and create maps that are hopefully less bugged and can fit what feels like a more rigid standard of having balanced maps nowadays than we had in the past. And it was just knowing how to code has been useful for me, because I don't just sit down and write the map script these days. I've written a preprocessor that I have a map script that I feed as input, and then I output the actual map script that I put in the mods. So it's a much more complicated process.
There's a map called Morris I would like you to look into. Anyway, just joking.
TaToH, you have an excellent YouTube channel, by the way, and one of the videos that it's mostly blown me away, I mean, generally, in Age of Empires 2, was one of your pacifist campaigns. Again, you're very, very well known for those, where you try to complete campaigns without killing a unit, right? I think that's the shtick of the whole thing.
Yep.
And I was particularly blown away by I think it was the El Cid run. I think it was one of your latest, probably the last one that you did. It was like, how does one do this? So you were exploiting. So basically the premise is that you try to exploit every single bug there exists in Age of Empires 2.
Every single bug to try to get 0 units killed on the achievement screen at the end of a campaign. And I guess this started from, I watched a lot of Doom speedruns, and there was a pacifist category where you have to complete the level without even, they were a bit more strict. You can't even shoot at it or harm a monster in that. And I had seen some YouTube videos about them, and I thought, this would be a fun thing to try in Age of Empires too. So I tried it, and it turned out to be a lot of fun. And I think I got it down to the point where from the Age of Kings and the Conquerors, you only need to kill one unit, and there was one unit left that I couldn't find a bug to get around to killing to complete the campaigns.
Mm-hmm. That was in the El Cid, or which one was it?
That's Kushluk in Genghis Khan 2. You can't kill him. You can go back to the Age of Kings where you could convert heroes and convert him and delete him, but to do that, you need to get villagers, and you need to kill 5 cav archers to get villagers. So you almost can get around it, but you're
not
him.
quite yet. So the last one that he did was quite a long time ago. So is it, well, obviously, I assume a lot of this is very difficult to make happen, especially when you need to, study all the bugs and understand how they work. So again, it's been a long time since you last released one of those. Did you just reach your limit? It's just impossible for all the other ones that you're still missing to make it work?
No, it's just I feel like the Age of Kings and the Conquerors ones are the ones I was really interested in, and I haven't really played the campaigns since them that much. I do have a few ideas for new Pacifist videos, but now it's kind of the situation where as you get better at video editing, you kind of have higher standards for your own quality. And I know it's gonna take me a lot of time to produce something that's at the quality I'd want it to be now. And I don't want to just force it out or just, because when I first made the Pacifist videos, I was like, oh, this is a fun idea. I'll just edit some videos together. And now I have a bit of a different outlook on it. And if I'm going to produce something like that, I want to make sure it's the highest quality I can get it, because those are what a lot of people know me for. So it's not something I want to rush. It'll be if I do them again, it'll be done when it's done.
I love it. Or did you remember when we had Dave in the podcast again, long time ago? I think it was before Hidden Cup 5. He said he was working on that. What's that? What's that? What that thing? The Empire Island, I think. Empire Island. He's released one of those. The first episode. And
the second one is still not out?
During that podcast, which was over a year ago, I think 2 years ago, he said he had already spent like 50 hours producing the whole thing. And I just was reminded of this, T-West, because that's exactly what you're saying. I think, his own standards have risen and he wants to make sure that it's really good. But it just goes to show how it can be a block as well. It can be an obstacle for you, right? When you raise your standards too much, that you prevent yourself from actually releasing the content. So yeah, if you're hopeful that an episode 2 is coming from Dave's Empire Island or Island again, I don't know the title anymore.
The island. I know exactly what you're talking about, because I remember him talking about how much work he put into editing that.
Yeah.
Look at George R. Martin with the Game of Thrones last book. Right? It's taking forever, and who knows what will happen at this point.
It's a tough process, yeah.
Travis, you have also been to quite a few LAN events over the years now. I know we met for the first time, I think it was in Manchester. We took a nice taxi ride together to the airport.
That was in Brighton.
Was it in Brighton?
Yeah, that was in Brighton. Yeah.
Damn, yeah.
I remember. You wanted to go back to bed, and I should have forced you to go to the airport earlier because you missed your flight.
Makes sense. Obviously, I've been to quite a few LAN events as well now, and recently as well. You were also even introduced as a caster at certain LAN events, like NAC, Garrison, for example. How did that come about, and how was your experience as a professional caster at a LAN event?
That was just a message to Moan. I was like, hey, I was thinking of coming to this anyway. Could I cast? And then we just worked it out. And yeah, I was able to cast there. Funny thing was, they didn't have much funding left when I approached Timon about that. As fate would have it, I used to live in Berlin, and I actually have a childhood friend who happens to live in Berlin, like a 10-minute walk from the GL studio, so I was going to stay with him. But then I guess there was some issue where the hotel they had booked everyone in went bankrupt, and they suddenly had to rebook everyone in a different hotel.
This is a crazy story. Let me tell this story because it's unbelievable, and don't forget what you wanted to say. So this is
I will add an anecdote at the end there that will make it more fun for you.
Yeah, so for the Noble Apartment Cup, people were expected to sleep, players and staff and all that were supposed to sleep in a hotel that's very, very close to where the tournament takes place. I think that's where everybody had been staying during Nilly's Apartment Cup as well. I mean, Only the ones recorded in Berlin, of course, not the ones in Hamburg.
And that's where the viewing party was for the previous NAC.
For the first one, that's correct. For the first, the first viewing party, that's correct. And apparently, it was only like 3 weeks before the start of the Noble Apartment Cup that Gamer Legion gets a phone call. Hey, sorry, we just went bankrupt. We can't do anything. Nobody can come. We got to shut. Then they had like 3 weeks or 2 weeks. I don't remember how long it was in advance. They had to, change everybody into a new hotel, which was what you were talking about too, West. Yeah.
Yeah, so as I said, I was going to help them save funds by staying with a friend of mine who lived nearby. But then I get there, I get off my plane, I get to my friend's house, and Timon texts me. He's like, "Hey, did you arrive at the hotel?" And I'm like, "What do you mean arrive at the hotel?" And in the chaos where they rebooked everyone, they accidentally booked a room for me at the hotel.
Oh,
so however much money they had to spend doing that, it was already booked. So I just went and stayed at the hotel while I was there.
Wow, beautiful.
Nice.
Yeah, so going back to casting, though, is that something that you always wanted to do, or is that something that just started developing as soon as you got more and more involved in Age of Empires 2?
Yeah, it's really just something that started developing. I always felt like I was more YouTube focused with a lot of the edited content, like the Pacifist runs, and recently I'd been doing more Twitch content. So I've been casting a lot and just wanted to take another step forward in terms of doing casts at a LAN. And then I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. I feel like I learned a lot from doing it. So I've both Noble Apartment Cup and the Garrison were absolutely great experiences for me.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel like you took a step up after the NEC and compared to your performance at NEC compared to the Garrison? By the way, in my opinion, I think you did a great job in both events.
In both, yeah.
Oh, I thank you.
From what I could see, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like when I got to the Garrison, it flowed smoother. For NAC, there's definitely an accumulation process to just knowing what it's like to stand in front of a camera and talk with someone next to you while listening to a production talk in your ear, and also buy time between games and do things that you don't necessarily have to do while you're sitting at your own PC streaming a game. So I felt like the Garrison probably went smoother for me in that regard. As far as the actual casting of the games themselves go, I don't know if there was much of I don't know if that really changed. There's still, I think, a process of getting accustomed to doing more, like with most sports, you have generally someone who's focused more on the play-by-play and someone who's more focused on analyst, or the analyst role, and usually I'm more of the analyst role when I'm at an event, but when I'm streaming myself, you kind of got to do both. So there's a learning process of figuring out how to interact with someone and how much you need to be talking when you're just doing the analyst versus when you have to do everything yourself, and that's still definitely a learning process for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's something a lot of people watching as well don't really think about or realize. Is the attention is obviously on the gameplay, the players and their performance and such, but as a caster, analyst, or whoever is on the show as well, the amount of work and that goes into performing and delivering when you're in front of the camera, even not as a player. I've done some casting as well, and you see, you definitely feel like there's pressure there as well, and experience helps a lot as well there. That's why I'm curious as well about from the first LAN to the second LAN, if there's a big difference. I think that's also something. You see how natural now, for example, Dave or T90, how comfortable they are in front of a camera.
Right.
Nearly as well in his time. Something people probably don't realize, that there's a lot of effort going into just those things as well.
Yeah, and it's not just being comfortable in front of the camera. It's just you go up there and as I said, there's a whole flow to it where you have to now have to transition to an ad, or you need to buy time because there's a tech problem and they're setting up the game, and you need to figure out how to keep the audience listening while they're setting up the computers, or you go to interview ACCM and he decides he wants to go for a smoke break and he runs right past you.
I think also one of the most difficult moments, I imagine, in some of those LAN tournaments, if you're interviewing someone and the guy gives one-word answers, because a lot of times when you're interviewing someone, you rely on someone giving you a longer answer so that you can think about your next question, and you can either, take it from whatever that person is saying or just taking it into a whole other direction. But if the answer is one word, yes or no, you're in a spot. What do I do now? And I feel like with folks like Yo or ACCM who give very short answers and very straight to the point, that can be a tough moment for some interviewers too. All right, TOS, listen up. We really thank you for giving us the time to joining us. Before we let you go, I wanted to know if you have a goal that you're still looking to reach in 2026? Is there something that you're hoping to achieve this year? Sorry, 2025.
Well, short term, I just hope that the Cartographers does well. I hope everyone enjoys that, and we have a good finals coming up on the June 22nd. So I don't really have any long term plans beyond that. I've spent the past few months preparing for that, and that's my goal. Get as successful of a tournament over the next 2 weeks or so as we can get.
But you're still looking to commit and stick with Age of Empires for a while, right?
Okay.
So you're not like Cartographers over, and then I'm gonna be like Jordan and get out of here, right? It's you're gonna be a part of the scene.
I'm not gonna go back and forth.
Okay.
not gonna have to advertise when I come back.
It's a great marketing trick by Jordan, to be fair.
Every
time he's back, it's like, oof, he's back.
It's like, oh, he's back. That's a good point. I mean, you see his stream viewer numbers when he's back. Everyone's watching.
True.
We're not going to keep it hot.
Smart.
We've talked about this before. Whenever somebody announces that they're leaving, they probably are not leaving forever. When they leave without saying anything, that's when you need to start working. All right, let's listen up. Thank you so very much for your time. It was great having you here, listening to your insights, and all the luck to you in the world for the Cartographers too.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on.
And if you enjoy the podcast, you guys know what you have to do. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Now, this time, I'm sure I didn't mention Spotify, so I'm going to mention it here. If you guys prefer to listen to us on Spotify, you can do so. And if you do, don't forget to rate us 5 stars. See you, everybody, and thanks for watching.